I reported on the situation in Iraq a couple of days ago with the Iraqi government denying this story, but now it apparently seems to be official. The U.S. has halted physical petrodollars in bid to choke Iran's allies in Iraq. Um, the administration has reportedly halted U.S. cash dollar shipments and frozen some security cooperation with Iraq. We were literally flying pallets of cash into Iraq to support the government. That's the bottom line there. The alleged move is apparently intended to pressure Baghdad to break with Tehran and has sparked fears that Washington is weaponizing Iraq's economic challenges to curb Iran-backed factions. Some observers have warned that mounting U.S. pressure will primarily harm Iraq's most vulnerable populations amid a looming budget shortfall. I mean, again, that's what Washington does. They weaponize the currency. That's what it means to have the global current, like that's what dollarization is. I'm sorry, that's just the reality of the situation. Citing Iraqi and U.S. sources, Saudi-owned Al Hadith TV on April 20th claimed that Washington has halted delivery of cash dollar pallets to the Central Bank of Iraq. An unnamed American official separately told U.S.-funded Al-Hurra that dollars will not flow into Iraq until the shape of the next government is known. So they're holding the government hostage. The U.S. is holding the Iraqi government hostage to force a political outcome that they want. And again, that's what dollarization is. The source said that Washington wants an Iraq that is not beholden to Iran's will. The Wall Street Journal on April 21st similarly reported that the U.S. Treasury Department has in recent days blocked a planned cargo plane shipment of nearly 500 million USD in cash on pallets. Just kind of picture that in your mind. The outlet noted that this appears to be the second such delay since Israel and the U.S. launched a war on Iran on February 28th. That conflict quickly engulfed Iraq. And I haven't done a whole lot on that except to say that Iraq has basically been cut off. Their oil flows have pretty much been cut off. The Trump administration has also reportedly suspended security coordination with Baghdad and frozen funding for some Iraqi security bodies. U.S. officials have reportedly suggested that this policy will continue until Iraq's government holds accountable Shiite armed groups deemed responsible for rocket and drone attacks on U.S. interests. The UK-based Arabi 21 has framed the alleged shift as part of a broader U.S. attempt to clamp down on dollar smuggling to Iran by Tehran-allied factions in Iraq. A Central Bank of Iraq statement explicitly denied that the U.S. has halted physical dollar shipments, describing claims of a full financial freeze as inaccurate. Kurdistan 24, meanwhile, underlined that rumors of a dollar crunch have already unsettled Iraq's markets, and that similar halts in the past quickly fed dinar exchange rate volatility. Iraqi correspondent Ragdad al-Hayali similarly warned that freezing cash dollar flows could halt the payment of public sector salaries and damage the dignity of Iraqi workers. The alleged freeze is illogical, and they have called for a return to diplomacy to settle any disputes between Iraq and the U.S. That is a MP in the Iraqi parliament. Prominent British Iraqi economists have likened the apparent shift in U.S. policy to a traveler whose bank suddenly disables cash withdrawals from foreign ATMs while still allowing card purchases. Iraq can still use dollars for traceable international trade payments, but its access to anonymous and untraceable cash now appears more constrained. Again, this goes back to the stablecoin thing and being able to control the rails. The aim could be to increase due diligence and put pressure on the ability of Iran and its allies to access hard currency. The U.S. Treasury Department has in recent years sanctioned dozens of private Iraqi banks, alleging that they have used fraudulent wire transfers to siphon billions of dollars from the central bank. Since the 2003 U.S.-led toppling of the Ba'ath Party rule, revenues from all Iraqi crude sales, which funds approximately 90% of the federal government's budget, have flowed into the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. U.S.-based accounts are managed by the Central Bank of Iraq, as represented by the Ministry of Finance. Petrodollars are then transferred to Ministry of Finance accounts held at the CBI. The central bank subsequently buys dollars from the Ministry of Finance and converts greenbacks into dinars, including via currency auctions to fund government expenditures. This is pretty par for the course. I know the Russians do this. A lot of governments do this. This is a normal situation. Iraqi researcher Hamoud Baban blames a range of internal factors for a longer-term decline in Iraq's dollar holdings since 2023, rather than any dramatic shift in policy. Baghdad and Erbil have increasingly shifted to digital payments for foreign goods, with hard currency only accounting for around 3% of such transactions. Aiming to de-dollarize Iraq's economy, the Central Bank of Iraq has in recent years converted part of its dollar reserves to gold, which since 2024 have grown in proportion from 8.5% to 27%. That's actually a huge jump. The estimated $1 billion USD that American officials allege flows to Tehran from Iraq is a drop in the bucket compared to the tens of billions that Iran is thought to garner from oil sales to China. While curtailing Iraq's access to dollars may pressure Baghdad and potentially spike inflation via exchange rate volatility, it is unlikely to reshape Tehran's strategic calculus. Economically, the timing is especially sensitive. Credit rating agency Moody's recently downgraded Iraq's economic outlook to negative, reflecting the damaging effects of the Iran-Israel-U.S. war on Iraqi oil exports, which I cited before. Iraq is pretty much, I think, not exporting much, if anything. An estimated 90% of pre-war oil exports through the Strait of Hormuz appears to have been cut, although Iranian officials say Iraqi vessels are permitted to traverse the maritime choke point. Again, I think I highlighted before that part of this was transshipment that was going on, where the Iranians were using the Iraqis to cover. So it was still Iranian stuff flowing out. It just looked like it was Iraqi. There were allegations of that, at least. The previous export average was 3.5 million barrels of crude a day. Monthly losses are projected to hit up to $7 billion USD. Even though the Central Bank of Iraq's foreign reserves remain large, a cash flow squeeze at a moment of lower oil exports could force spending cuts or arrears that quickly feed public discontent. All of this comes amid heavy U.S. pressure on the ruling Shiite coordination framework to move against or distance itself from Iran-allied armed factions. Reports suggest that the Shiite alliance remains divided over whether to replace state-of-law bloc leader Nouri al-Maliki as its premiership candidate. The deadlock follows months of tension after Washington rejected Maliki's candidacy in January, partly due to his alleged closeness to Tehran. In the near term, Iraq is likely to muddle through thanks to just under 100 billion USD in foreign exchange reserves and continued non-cash dollar transfers. However, a prolonged halt in the delivery of physical greenbacks will keep the Iraqi dinar under pressure. The apparent standoff with Washington sharpens an ongoing dilemma confronting the coordination framework. Its leaders must weigh whether to sacrifice high-profile Iran-linked figures to unlock dollar flows or risk deeper confrontation with the U.S. Strategically, the episode may accelerate Iraqi debates on diversifying away from its continued reliance on the dollar. However, alternatives are limited as long as Iraq sells oil in the U.S. currency and parks a large share of reserves in American assets. Unless Baghdad can reassure Washington that it is curbing Iran-backed armed groups and shift away from Tehran, Iraq risks remaining a front line for a wider regional contest.